How's it going, everyone? This is Carlisle, and I'll be showing you guys the Nightblade spec that I use. Alright, so the points that I have are 61 into Nightblade and 15 into Riftstalker. And I simply chose Riftstalker to have added points into health and defense, because I feel like you need that more in PvP, especially if you're trying to be more 1v1. And I chose Blade Dancer as the last one, just for side steps. For the macros that I have my builder. Give me a sec to find it here. My builder has a lot of ascendant powers. If you have the abilities, by all means use them. If you don't, it's not that big of a deal. But they definitely do come in handy, especially Anathema, which reduces the healing that your target receives by 10%. Beyond that, I have Living Flame, which does damage over time. Touch of Darkness, which adds damage to your attacks, as well as drains your enemies of mana, power, and energy. And I have Primal Strike, the normal builder attack. And the reason that I chose to put Renewing Seed, if you're curious, it seems kind of out of place here, was so that hopefully by this time I would have taken some damage, and Renewing Seed will help give me some of that health back, as well as increase my endurance. But beyond that, I chose to put Living Flame here and Touch of Darkness with this here, so that I could have stack damage pretty much. It helps to burst is all about pretty much how much damage you can do at one given moment, so that's why I put those abilities there. My next is my heavy, which is simply Dust Strike and Ebon Fury. Ebon Fury just makes Dust Strike not cost anything, and Dust Strike, the damage of Dust Strike increases every time you use it. So that's another burst that I'll use once I've used other abilities. So typically, after I've used my finisher, which is here, which is Dark Descent, which causes your next 3 finishers to not cost any combo points. Then Scourge of Darkness, which adds damage to your next attacks. How many attacks? To your next 10 weapon attacks, but in 61 I believe it's 25 attacks. So your next 25 attacks will have their damage, will have added damage. And then Blazing Strike, your normal finisher. So that means you'll, with Dark Descent, you'll get to get a Scourge of Darkness and then 2 Blazing Strikes, which is a pretty good burst. And if you really want to, you could do something like add Living Flame into that finisher macro if you'd like to, for, you know, a bigger burst in that period of time. But it's all about how exactly you want to play it. And other macros that I have my Blink macros, which are simply Shadow Assault, Shadow Bliss, and Shadow Stalk. And the reason that I chose to put these separate were so that I could, or actually, I'm sorry, wrong Blink macro. Wrong one. Here we are. Okay, so Blazing Path and Shadow Shift. Blazing Path and Shadow Shift, I just decided to keep them separate so that I could use them whenever the situation called for it. Blazing Strike will break stuns and things of that nature, and Shadow Shift just to help either escape or to catch up to people who are trying to flee. I have my ranged macro, which is here, which I also have Touch of Darkness in here in case it's available when I'm using this. Dusk to Dawn, which is my root ability, and Fiery Chains and Fiery Spike. And Fiery Chains spreads to 8 enemies, and Fiery Spike will will stack up to 3 times and do damage over time. And last but not least, my ranged finisher, which, just give me a second to find this. That is the incorrect one. Here we are. Which is pretty similar to my regular melee finisher. It's just flame thrust instead of blazing strike. So dark descent, scourge of darkness, and flame thrust. Alright, so aside from that, I have what I do as far as my rotation with my character here is I'll typically, depending on the situation, will start off spamming my builder, of course, and then once I see Living Flame become activated and I've got my 5 combo points, I'll start to spam my Blazing Strike macro for a big burst, spam come into stealth, use Dark Malady for an increase to 20% damage, then spam Blazing Strike, Twilight Force, and then Blazing Strike, and then move on to my heavy. So I'm just going to show you guys a normal rotation for me. So it's a pretty good amount of damage right off the top. So yeah, use your stealth. Use your, I believe is it Dark Descent? The ability that gives you the 20% increase to damage. Next, use Twilight Force for an increased, I believe, 10% damage it will do to the enemy. I'll spam my Primal Strike, so till my Living Flame activates. By that time, hopefully I should have combo points. If not, I'll keep going until I do. Then spam Blazing Strike to get the big burst there. And then once that's done, I can use Dust Strike and spam that for more burst on top of that. But yeah. So I mean, it's a pretty simple build, really. And you know, of course, depending on the situation, you have a lot of other abilities here to use. So Dusk to Dawn, if you're trying to catch someone who's at a distance from you. Like I said, I put it inside of here. But if I don't really particularly need to catch anybody and I'm not trying to use my ranged attacks, I'll just use it in the mix of my regular builders. Side steps if you find yourself needing to in a little bit of trouble, and Twilight Transcendence if you're really in a mix of things. But yeah, I mean, that's really pretty much it as far as my build goes. It's very, very simple. You'd think it's more complicated from how well it seems to do, but that's it. And of course, there are other things that you can do, like put Break Free inside of your spam macro, so it'll be used instantly, which I find myself doing in a lot of other builds. But I haven't really updated this in a little while, so I'll probably do that here soon. But yeah, that's all I've got for you guys. So if there are any comments or any other requests that you guys have, please don't hesitate to put them down inside of the comments there. And please like the video and let me know how I'm doing. Take it easy.